Hello, happy 2025. I'm absolutely certain that I posted a video already, but I'm going to be, I believe in 2 videos, wrapping up 3 books that I've already read this year. To be fair, I read the majority of this in 2024. I just finished off like the last 150 pages. Maybe not that much, but I just finished off a little bit of it this year. So, gonna leave Miss House of the Spirits for her own video, and in this one I'm going to talk about the 2 books that I finished and read this year. Again, technically I started this in 2024, the day we left to visit my family for Christmas, but it's short stories, so I only read 2 of them, which was about 50 pages, and then with this one I actually read this in 2 days, like 3 days ago, which is a shocker for me. Neither of these I annotated. I was trying to just read for the sake of reading, and I love folk horror. It's what I prefer to write. So with this, I was just going into it. And I find annotating a hardcover like almost sacrilegious, I guess. I would much prefer to just read it because I don't know, it feels like I shouldn't do that with a hardcover. So to start, this is called The Gathering Dark. It's an anthology of folk horror. It's got a variety of authors. I've marked off 3 of the stories that I really enjoyed. That's this one. And then the second is Pride and Prejudice in Pittsburgh, which by the title and the cover, I didn't expect to be very good. I honestly might just leave it without the cover. I appreciate that this little cartoon style is how we're making book covers nowadays. It's not for me, and I don't like it. So I might leave it off because it's even here. I described it the other day as a very Wattpad cover, something where someone probably found an image and then just traced over them. Again, this is me being very rude to whoever made this cover. My God, I'm so sorry. I'm not an artist. I'm so sorry. It's not my kind of cover. These are the 2 that I'll be talking about here. It's kind of just like a wrap up, maybe less of a review. I actually haven't written out my review for this yet because I just finished it a couple days ago, but I did type up a review for the folk anthology, so I will probably pull up my phone here to look at my review on Goodreads. I've started to try and use storygraph. We'll see how well that goes because I already barely use Goodreads. Okay, so The Gathering Dark, I really enjoyed reading this. It was pretty easy. There were 2 that I just found to be slightly confusing, and again, with the very last one, it could have been because I was pretty tired as I was reading it, and it's a short story, so I easily could go back and read it again. And while I was confused, the last one was one of the most interesting concepts I found in the book. So, if that tells you anything. But overall, I give it a 3. I try not to look through reviews before I read a book or before I write my own review because I am so easily persuaded, or if I see something negative, it like really upsets me if I really enjoyed it. With this one, I didn't actually have that happen. I felt like most people agreed with me. I thought some people were a little harsh, like, I don't know, it's not that serious, it's just an anthology. A lot of reviews, and I agreed with them, said that it really wasn't folk horror, and I agree with that. There's a couple in here that felt like folk horror, which actually were the 2 more confusing short stories for me to read. One named Petrified, and then the last one called The Burning One. Those felt more folk inspired, but a lot of these honestly felt like an episode of Supernatural. And looking at the back here, one of these authors actually did work on Supernatural. Alex Brown, serving as the showrunner's assistant on Supernatural. So, you know, that's pretty interesting. But a lot of these stories felt more like that. Like an episode of, not CW, but a YA episode of a spooky show. Not like a Hill House, Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, Michael Flanagan kind of way, but, you know, something a little less scary. I did really enjoy it. I like folk horror. I don't mind if things are like, I don't know, maybe a little juvenile. I'm not the biggest reader of YA all the time. I honestly can't classify YA half the time, so I don't mind. But yeah, I definitely agreed that it didn't feel super folk horror, but I had 3 favorites in here. One was called Stay, it's the very first one. The next was called Ghost on the Shore, somewhat in the middle. And then, seemed like this was the highlight of the book, was called It Stays With You. If I were to rank them, I guess it would be It Stays With You, Ghost on the Shore, and then Stay. But It Stays With You is by far the best short story in here. The way it handles trauma, especially childhood trauma, and the way it takes, not really a folk tale, but it's a Bloody Mary retelling, essentially. The way it takes that kind of spooky little thing that we all did as kids, and it turns it into something real that feeds off of the traumas that kids who have now grown up have faced. I really enjoyed it. All 3 of those I enjoy because they have very gay or straight up just gay tones, gay themes. The gay themes in It Stays With You are like lower, but they're there. But it's like hard. It's heartbreaking almost. That's the only one in this where I was like, I kind of would want more of these characters. It was a short story, but it was enough for me to feel connected and really like the 3 of those characters. Even these other 2 that I enjoyed, you didn't have a lot of time to do that, but It Stays With You, by far, highlight of this book. Back to the first one, Stay. This one is essentially about a woman who's taking care of her grandmother and her family in a town that's known for, you need to take care of your dead because they can come back. Whether it's a ghost or otherwise, they're there. It's pretty quick. I think it's only like 25 pages. And I don't know, that's the easiest way to describe it without getting into anything that would be a spoiler. And I just thought it was solid. It was a good way to open the book. I didn't exactly expect what was happening at the end, but I wasn't going into it with any expectations or thoughts. I was just reading, blank brain, in the car. I just woken up. I was like, smooth. So I really enjoyed it. Obviously, again, I said it was gay, and if it's gay, it gets points. I just find that much more interesting. And then the last one is Ghost on the Shore. This one I thought was really well done. I thought that it could have gone a couple different ways. It's essentially someone, our main character has lost someone really important to them. We discover why as we read. But in Central Texas, it's set kind of near Austin, which as a Texan, I'm always into a book or something that's set in the state, no matter where it is, even if I'm not there. I'm into it. I thought it was done well. I wish that it had a little bit more to it, but it is a short story. So I think as it is a short story, it works really well. If you added more, it would no longer be a short story, and you would have the audience really wanting more that you can't provide. So those were the 3 I really enjoyed. With the other 2, Stay I gave a 4 out of 5, and Ghost on the Shore I also gave a 4 out of 5. They were just solid reads. Again, It Stays With You. Hands down, the best short story in this book, in this anthology. It was beautiful. The way they handle it, the way they handle the anger of traumatized children. What can I say? Let kids be angry. I love when kids can be angry in a book. Hold on, I'm reading my notes. Now, in terms of ones that I wasn't as into, there's a story in here called Truth or Dare. I would say that this is my least favorite. So I'm excluding the ones that I was a little confused by, especially the last one. I just feel like I need to reread it. But Truth or Dare, this one is essentially, there's a tunnel that appears when you ask the question in this town, and this girl and this boy are playing Truth or Dare. He asks her a question about essentially them. He's like, will you wait for me when I'm at college? And it turns into this whole thing. And my biggest gripe here is, of course, the story, I'm just gonna get into it. That one lets you know, like, he's leading her on, he doesn't love her as much as she does, but she's aware of it. And she's coming to terms that she might not actually love him, right? And it's just putting a cryptid horror thing on someone just because they don't love you the same way you love them.
Huh?
Now that's high school. And I get it's set in high school, it's just the writing of that one and the reasoning, it was so not for me. It just felt so juvenile. I'm so sorry, he doesn't owe you liking you. If he doesn't like you, he can't force that onto himself. And of course, they're teenagers. Teenagers make awful, stupid decisions that they probably grow out of. Do I think a man will grow out of it? No. But you gotta give them the benefit of the doubt. You never know if they will. So, it really wasn't, she wasn't for me, to put it lightly. Overall, these are pretty solid. It was a solid read. Beautiful cover. Whoever did this, genius. Incredible. It's got like baby doll heads. Can you even see that? A baby doll head. It's so gorge. And this, oh, it was beautiful. This was just an incredible, beautiful book. Short, quick, easy, fun. I want to read the other one. It's called like Where Death Lies or something. And then our next book that I read within 2 days, I started the day I finished that. I started on Friday and finished on Saturday, I believe, is Pride and Prejudice in Pittsburgh. This, I need to be real with you. I got this in the Barnes & Noble half-off hardcovers sometime, it was either September or October of 24. And I'm not gonna lie, in a very rude way, I don't really read romance. It's not super my thing, where it's like strictly a book about romance. If it's a story with romance in it, of course, I'll get into that. I love Six of Crows. I love ships. But I don't normally just seek out strictly romance. And with this one, Pride and Prejudice, it's gonna be a getcha, like a gotcha. It got me. I was got. Because I'm intrigued. Why is it called that? And Pittsburgh? Crazy, absolutely diabolical cover and title of a book, and I just really wanted to know what was going on. I'm not going to lie, I picked it up and I was a little rude. I had not great intentions. I didn't think it was going to be good. But then I plowed through it in 2 days. It's honestly a day and a half, because I started like 3 on Friday and finished it by 2 a.m. the next day. It fluctuates each chapter between each of these characters. So this is Lucy and this is Audrey. Like, the writing, it is YA. It's a little simple. That's how I was able to get through it so fast. Like, it's not gonna have super dense, intense language like Pride and Prejudice. But it's fun and it's easy, and it does get you invested in these two girls. Like, I was invested in what was gonna happen. This is in the blurb, so it's not like a spoiler. In the beginning, you're a little like, okay, I read the blurb, how am I going to get into 1812, the 1800s? How is this going to be Pride and Prejudice? And when you get there, I'm just immediately like, okay, and I need to know what happens next. Okay, I need to know. I really like the side characters of James, Matthew, and Alexander. I thought that they were super fun additions. I'm normally not the biggest fan of just a boy ever, but like, these are men who are side characters who are meant to kind of just be a pretty face, but they're not. And I think that's a really fun addition. They add some emotional heart to the book. I thought the ending was a bit quick, but again, I don't normally read YA, especially YA romance. I imagine most YA romance endings are quick compared to how big the chunk of this book where you're just in 1812 trying to figure everything out with them. The story wraps up really quick within like 2 chapters, and then you have a little epilogue. Other than that, my main thing is it doesn't feel very Pride and Prejudice. It seems like the name really is just an actual gotcha. It's like, do you want to read Pride and Prejudice but 2 girls? Come here. And then it's not very Pride and Prejudice. It does follow the same concept. There's a ball, there's a dance in the beginning, there's a rain scene, all of those kinds of things where we've got like the big points that happen in Pride and Prejudice. But I think it's a very hard concept to put the pride of Lizzie and the prejudice of Darcy onto these characters when they're both women. I don't think that it can translate as well. So very easy to figure out. It's kind of like Audrey is Pride and Lucy is Prejudice. Of course, in original Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen and this, they both harbor both of those traits, but you can kind of see where they separate out. And you can really see Audrey's pride, like, she's stubborn, she's having a hard time, she doesn't want to change what she's doing, she's headstrong, she thinks love is dead because of a breakup, she thinks she can never do art again because of a breakup and because her style is gone. And then Lucy is supposed to be Prejudice, but it's very hard to put prejudice on a woman in 1812 who, not to be all 2005 Pride and Prejudice, she has no money, she has no prospect, she's a burden to her family. Like, it's hard to put the concept of prejudice on her when she doesn't really have the ability to do anything with it or really harbor that prejudice in the same way that Darcy does, where he's looking down on this family, he's seeing the money differences between him and Lizzie, and of course he says that Lizzie isn't part of that, it's more her family, but you can really see his prejudice about a woman and a family with less money than him and how it impacts how he relates, talks, acts with them until he starts to get to know her more. I understand what they're trying to go for. They have a scene where Lucy, the one from 1812, essentially calls being gay or bisexual, the description that Audrey's just given to her about how she thinks that she has loved a woman before, as abhorrent. But it's very obvious to the reader, as this is coming from Lucy's point of view, that she's not saying that being gay is abhorrent. She's saying that she knows that people would view her and how she feels, because she has realized that before Audrey did, that she likes women, that how they feel is abhorrent. That something like that in 1812 is so hard to comprehend. It's something that's almost impossible to act on. And it's just so hard to really believe the prejudice part of this book when it comes from a woman who has no money. If she were to tell someone that she likes women, to tell her father or anyone in town, or were to disagree with the marriage that's being forced onto her, she would genuinely have no money, no belongings, no anything. She would be kicked out and forced to live where? So it's much different from Darcy, who's standing from this point of wealth, which she also has, but is a man and owns his money and owns his own manor and is able to have those things and because of it look down onto people who do not. And Lucy doesn't do that. I think it's very clear from this book that she does not look down onto Audrey. She wants to understand her and feels hurt when Audrey cannot understand why she can't live as freely as her. So I think that the Pride and Prejudice bit is just a bit incorrect. It might not genuinely be trying to be Pride and Prejudice, but I think maybe just having it be a different title set in the 1800s would have worked. But I did really enjoy it. That is these two books. My first couple reads of 2025. Super good, super fun. Again, I really enjoyed this. Don't take anything I just said as if this book was bad. This was great. I had a great time. It was simple. It was wonderful. It does make me wonder how we can distinguish cartoon covers between adult romance and YA romance. That's these. Overall, these were so good. I'm feeling much better about reading. This is making me very excited for reading more this year. So what I have next is The Midnight Lie. I actually started it last night. I'm on chapter 4. That doesn't really mean anything. They're very, very short. I was very sleepy and only got 8 pages in. So this is next. It's going to be pretty different from, obviously, those last 2 that I just read. But, of course, very excited. It did get me with the epic LGBTQ romantic fantasy. So, of course. I've had it for a while and I haven't read it. But that's all I have for this one. And yeah, I'll have my little end screen with all my information. Still on Instagram. Haven't been on TikTok in a long time. Please follow me on Instagram. Please check out what I'm doing. I think it's fun. But yeah, I hope this was enjoyable. If you want to go pick up those books, please do. Find them at a library if they have them. By God, they're beautiful. I had a great time. They were simple and they were quick. And that's not a bad thing. Just because something's a little simple doesn't mean it's bad. It can still be really enjoyable. That's all.